Hello and welcome to NewsClick. We are going to discuss today the crisis that we see in the Directorate General of Civil Aviation, and that's really with respect to particularly the Indigo Airlines, where the rules that DGCA had actually notified quite some time back has led to finally the Indigo Airlines saying that they are not able to cope up with the kind of regulations that has come in. Again, it was there long back, and therefore the current problems that has arisen. Nearly 700 flights have been cancelled, and there is the problem of a lack of aircraft pilots being available due to the kind of roster restrictions DGCA had notified quite early and which have now been acted upon. Based on the cancellations, now the DGCA has notified they're going to relax it for a few days, weeks, whatever is the notification. So to discuss this with us, we have D. Raghunandan, who as we know, has been a part of NewsClick discussions, particularly on issues of civil aviation, defense, and so on. Raghu, good to have you with us. But quickly,
Good to be here.
Quickly coming to the issue, what is the chaos we see in Indigo? What were the specific rules that were notified, and why has it led to this chaos?
See, the rule that has been notified now pertains to the amount of flying hours that a pilot can continuously do without taking a break. Now, this had been earlier quite relaxed, permitting the airlines to give pilots extra additional duties to cover more legs of a flight, stretching sometimes to...
Which means the pilots get less rest
Exactly.
in between flights.
Which would stress the pilot, and it had brought about a situation where the pilots associations and the airlines were in conflict, and particularly Indigo, because it was the largest carrier, and they were stretching the flying hours of the pilot before they could take a break. So the pilots then went to the DGCA, which was the aviation regulator. Initially, actually, the regulator, DGCA, took the side of the airlines, arguing that, they thought the pilots were doing union baji in this and trying to get out of work and slacking off so that they could demand higher pay. But the pilots were actually complaining about stress and the need for a break between flights. Finally, the DGCA then insisted on these timings, which are in operation now, due to which the pressure that Indigo has felt has finally exploded. And
Raghu,
they are
quickly interrupting at this moment. When were these rules were notified, and how much time was given to Indigo to adjust to these?
The notification the process started almost 18 months ago.
18 months back.
Yeah.
So there is no argument that they didn't get enough time?
No, nothing of the kind. Nothing of the kind. It is just that all the airlines put together generally thought they've always had a cozy relationship with the regulator. And the airlines thought that between them and the regulator, they would be able to sort of squeeze the pilots into agreeing to these hours. But clearly that has not worked out that way, particularly after a series of accidents or near accidents in the air and on the ground, particularly the crash at Ahmedabad, which has then forced the regulator to stick to the rules rather than play footsie with them.
Let's go back to the rules. The rules essentially would say that between the flights there has to be adequate rest time.
Yes.
So that was one. And that didn't seem to onerous to that the pilots, before they fly, they should be at least rested and have slept what a normal human being actually requires. And that's really 8 hours of rest, the night hours to be counted from a certain time, etc., etc. So if we look at the rules, they appear to be what normally you should allow a
They are
human
the
being
standard
to have.
international rules.
Standard international rules, and on top of that, you are endangering the safety not only of yourself, not only of the aircraft, but of the passengers.
Correct.
So therefore, the regulations in this case protect essentially the passengers more than anybody else. And that's
Absolutely.
what it is supposed to be. And here it was really eating into their rest time. And the other part of it, which seems to have caused the other set of problems, is that it said that you cannot include the normal weekend or the holidays as a part of the rest time.
The normal scheduled working hours and break time should not take into account normal holiday time of the pilots. So like weekend or paid leave, etc., is a pilot's entitlement, and that should not be counted against the hours, because even that goes to play into the pilot's relaxed state of mind and body. You can't expect the pilot to be flying 14 hours a day, 24/7. He needs a weekend off, he needs days off in between. And these are part of, as I said, international rules of civil aviation, which need to be adhered to. May I also add that what is added to this pressure is the fact that airlines in India, especially Indigo being the market leader, is facing a fairly acute shortage of pilots, which is what is driving this problem there and pushing it. All the airlines, especially Indigo, are working with much less number of pilots than the fleet expansions that they have undertaken. So they have bought a lot of new aircraft, thinking that they will expand their market share, but they have not recruited sufficient number of pilots in keeping with that size of fleet. And this is adding pressure.
Raghu, at the same time, we have seen airlines closing down. So
Yes.
a surplus set of pilots should be available for that as well.
Yes.
So the issue is really not recruiting enough pilots, or there not being enough pilots in the pipeline.
No, I think there is an issue of insufficient number of pilots, given the pace of expansion.
Okay. Okay.
You know, the airlines, including Air India now, the newly privatized Air India, have something like 1,700 aircraft on order at different stages. That's a huge number. And the projected requirement in India over the next decade, given current rates of expansion, is a demand for about 30,000 pilots.
That's a crisis which has yet to hit us. What has hit us
Exactly.
is the
We are-
early
we
stage
are-
of that crisis.
We are witnessing the beginnings of that crisis now.
Okay.
And this is also not only true in India, this is also true internationally, where many new airlines are opening, particularly in West Asia, in the Middle East, in Southeast Asia, budget airlines in Europe, and they're all hunting for pilots. So many pilots, Indian pilots, have been recruited by those airlines. India has earlier recruited pilots or brought them in on wet lease into operations in India, completely insufficient to meet demands. So we are witnessing the beginnings of a much larger crisis, which we are going to hit in the years to come.
Coming back to the current crisis, we'll go into the future of the airlines industry, particularly in India, a little later. Coming back to the Indian crisis right now, what we are having, DGCA seems to have relaxed the rules for some period. Now, what it means is they will go back to the schedule by which the weekends would be counted as a part of leave, would be counted as a part of off period, would be adjusted against the number of hours that they are supposed to get rest and so on. Plus, they would also be having per day what is it that they can fly. All those relaxations would put the pressure of the crisis on the pilots again. So the question is really, how long is this supposed to be, this relaxation is supposed to be, and how do the DGCA ensure that this does not continue to happen again? Particularly, as you have said, if the pilot is fatigued, if he doesn't have enough rest, we are risking their lives, of course, but also the lives of the passengers.
So right now, and this has been in the news the past few days, that the airlines were likely to appeal to the DGCA, which they have, asking for an extension of these of the application of these new rules.
Oh, they've got an extension, Raghu, up to February 10th.
Exactly, till first week of February. Right. The reason for this particular period is that this is the peak period for flights. This is the winter season. It's also peak tourism season. So all put together, this is the peak season for flights. So what the airlines hope that by the middle of February, the peak travel would have eased off the pressure, and then they would be able to go back to a less pressured schedule. Till then, yes, there will be added pressure on the pilots. Hopefully, the airlines would take some measures like bringing in a few additional pilots from elsewhere, from abroad, on wet lease or whatever, to be able to ease the situation a bit. Otherwise, I think we should be mentally prepared for some further delays or cancellations in the weeks ahead.
Weeks ahead means February 10th onwards, or right now is of course a question, but certainly February 10th, unless they've cut down their flights.
2 months, yeah.
Unless they've cut down their flights, as you were saying, the peak period may be over, the flights may reduce, and therefore some relaxation. But perhaps it will be the relaxations given to the airlines might be extended on not so soft terms as has been done now, but maybe some adjustment. That's a possibility, but that's what we remain to see. But question that appears, and this is something which I have not understood, or the people like me who do not follow the air safety, air sector in a way that you do. Why did the government not foresee the problem, A, and B, just passing certain, shall we say, relaxations or rules does not absolve the government from its responsibility to see that there is plans in order to meet these. Otherwise, every time you can essentially blackmail the public as well as the government to say, relax the rules and we have to squeeze the pilots.
Absolutely.
So what prevents us? Is it that we have really no foresight, or we don't believe in, shall we say, planning for what the future is likely to hold, or we have decided that the capitalist knows the best and he will decide for everybody, including the people, including the pilots, and including the government, whose responsibility it is to really, every country has this really check for safety of the passengers. No country in the world can decide the safety of the passengers is strictly for the airlines, and all we'll do is do a committee, find out who has been to blame, and then throw the book at them. That's not really the way it goes, because aircraft loss means, of course, immediate loss. I mean, it's of human lives, apart from capital loss, etc., which is a different issue altogether. So what is the real issue today, that we don't seem to plan for any of this?
Yeah. Yes, I fully agree with that. I think there is and there has been for a long time a very serious lack of planning for the expansion of the civil aviation industry that we have seen. One can understand in the early years of privatization, when the airline industry suddenly boomed because of pent-up demand, the entry of new airlines, the pent-up demand saw very rapid rise in the number of passengers. So one can maybe understand over the first 5 years or so that the government was not prepared. Seeing the trajectory, however, we've been witnessing something like 10, 15% cumulative annual growth rate of civil passenger traffic, among the fastest rates of growth in the world. And this is not something new, but this is something which we have witnessed over more than a decade now. Seeing that, there should certainly have been far more advanced planning and setting in motion additional infrastructure for developing the necessary personnel.
Human infrastructure.
In this case, it's pilots, but a very similar problem arises with regard to air traffic controllers.
Yes.
Very similar. You've got exploding number of aircraft in the air, and you've got very few controllers to be able to handle it. That increases pressure on the controllers. It can lead to controllers missing aircraft or getting things confused. Very similar situation as to pilots, except this is on the ground. And we also face a very severe shortage of ATCs in our country. And that's another problem that's waiting to hit us.
What are ADCs?
Air traffic controllers.
ATCs, okay.
Yeah. And that's a very serious problem, just like this one, except it hasn't hit us in the face yet. They are not the visible face of the aviation industry, so we don't notice that problem. But it is a problem waiting to explode. And both are very similar. We have a very poor pipeline producing this personnel.
Basically, a lack of planning,
complete lack of planning,
lack of foresight.
And the government seems to have sort of left it to the market to figure out what's happening.
As we know, the government's policy for quite some time in each sector has been the capitalist knows best.
Yeah.
And therefore, let us not interfere with what they're doing. And what we need to do is to discipline the workers to accept more load, do away with their various protection measures which are there, Factory Act, etc., etc. We know all of that. But what happens when it extends to the aircraft industry, not so much on the ground, which we don't know about, but what we do know about is basically when aircrafts fly and the aircrafts get cancelled, and then of course we, the quote-unquote, the air traveling elite in the country get hit. Then of course it becomes big news. What you're saying is this is something which is waiting to happen, except for the fact that we don't register it till a breakdown happens. And this time a major breakdown has occurred because 700 flights, I think, have been cancelled today. Virtually the entire Indigo flight at the moment seems to be grounded.
And I think in this aviation sector, there is an argument to be made for government to intervene in training of manpower required in the aviation sector, even if or despite the private sector not being able to generate it. Because the private sector have proven itself incapable or incompetent in this sphere. ATCs, of course, the air traffic controllers are not within the private sector at all. They are completely public sector. But even in that, we are falling flat on our face. Yeah. So as far as pilots are concerned, there is an argument to be made for government intervention at the last stage of pilot training. We have a very large number of basic pilot training academies all over the country. Small academies with a few pilots, with a few aircraft, training some pilots up to the what's called the private pilot license, PPL stage. Going from there to the commercial pilot's license phase and type certification, which means you need to be qualified for certain aircraft.
Specific aircraft which you are going to fly.
Boeing 737, or you need to be qualified for the Airbus 320 family of aircraft. That's a difficult stage. And these small little flying clubs that you have are incapable of catering to that demand. Given the fact that this is a large industry, there is a dependence on this training, not just for supplying personnel, but for training them properly in a very safety centric industry like this. There is good ground for demanding a significant public sector presence. There is a good call to be made for a significant government presence in the pilot training pipeline, particularly at the commercial pilot's license stage, because this is a significant sector of the Indian economy. And I think the government should take up the responsibility of providing the necessary infrastructure, because this is crucial not only for the business of the airline, but for passenger safety as well.
So, to conclude our discussion today, and thank you, Raghu, for joining us, that we first understood what is the implications of these rules, the DGCA rules for the pilots, and how they affect not just the safety of the aircraft, but of course the safety of the passengers. Therefore, all of us who travel by air or whose families travel by air, particularly the Indian elite, needs to be particularly concerned about the safety of the aircraft. That is, how the pilot who flies the aircraft, how his, what shall we say, well-being has to be maintained, A. And B, the DGCA rules were meant to see the pilots have that protection. And the unions have always, the Pilots Association in India particularly, has always been arguing that these rules should be strictly enforced. Airlines should not get a free pass with regarding the safety of the aircraft, the safety of the passengers, and therefore the pilots' safety as well as well-being needs to be taken care of. And this is what the rules are supposed to protect, and a relaxation of the rules becomes necessary because at the moment, otherwise we'll see the major airlines in India, which has 60% of the air passenger traffic, that will be grounded, leading to a much bigger chaos than we are seeing right now. So given that, yes, but the question is, in 2 months, how will we redeem the situation? I do not know. And what is it the airlines can do in order to get this problem off their backs? Because what we are pointing out is a larger gap that has opened up, and therefore this gap will not be met by simply tinkering with the safety rules that are now in operation.
Absolutely.
Some relaxation temporarily, yes, but within 2 to 3 months, a little bit of a window, because Raghu has pointed out already, the peak travel season may be over, but let's not bank upon that. We have to see how either we reduce air traffic at the moment, second, how we increase the flow of people who are trained to handle this level of aviation, the big passenger aircrafts, and what is the safety of the aircraft and the passengers we take with respect to the safety of the pilots flying, the well-being of the pilots flying the plane. Thank you, Raghu, for being with us.
Thank
and
you.
Hope that we'll be able to join you, have you join us for further discussions on what appears to be a crisis which will continue at least for the next 2 to 3 months, if not for longer.
Sure.
This
Thank
is
you.
all the time we have today. We'll come back to you with this and other issues as well.